Welcome to Rental Owner Update. My name is Doug Tabor, and I specialize in the sale of apartment buildings and rental properties in San Diego County. You can learn more about my business at www.yourapartmentbroker.com. Okay, so yesterday I was talking to a client of mine. Of course, the topic of rent control came about. And I said, Mike, aren't you concerned about rent controls here in San Diego County? And he said, you know, Doug, I've been investing for many decades here in San Diego, and I typically take the stance that I'm not going to worry about it until it becomes a reality. And I thought that was an interesting way to address it. You know, the San Diego County Apartment Association is really urging owners to jump on board with them so that they can fight any sort of rent control or government interference that's coming into the marketplace. And so my client, like many of the clients that I talk to on a regular basis, decided, you know, I'm not going to worry about it until it becomes an issue. And I thought maybe it would be interesting if I shared how severe some of these ordinances are. That might change a client's mind. Maybe they'll get on board with the Apartment Association and help try to at least fight back many of these ordinances. And so recently I received through the CCIM chapter here that I'm a member of a list of all the bullet points that are a part of the National City rent control measure that is going to be voted on in November by the citizens of National City, who, by the way, 70% of the citizens of National City are tenants. 70%. And they're going to be voting on this rent control measure. The list I received had over 20 bullet points on it, but I pulled out the top 10, or what I felt are the most severe 10, and I wanted to share those with you today. So here we go. The 10 most severe bullet points that are a part of the rent control measure that will be voted on in November by National City voters. Number 1, the measure does not allow for vacancy decontrol. An owner cannot reset the rent to market when a tenant voluntarily vacates the premises. So an owner cannot bring their rents up to market even after a tenant voluntarily vacates the unit. Number 2, this measure includes single-family homes and condominiums. Many folks think that this only pertains to apartment buildings, and that's not the case. It includes single-family and condominiums. They're all affected. Number 3, the measure generally, and this is a unique term, eliminates an owner's rights to require a tenant to vacate a unit except under limited circumstances. So it's eliminating an owner's rights. It's very interesting wording, to vacate a unit except under limited circumstances. And it doesn't explain what those limited circumstances are. Number 4, to regain possession of a rental unit under one of the above referenced limited circumstances, the owner will be required to compensate the tenant with a minimum relocation payment of at least $7,000. You get that? The owner is going to have to compensate a tenant $7,000 to relocate. The payment amount is to be $10,000 if one of the occupants is either 62 years of age or older or is a minor. So if one of the occupants is either a senior citizen or a minor, $10,000 is what the owner, the rental owner, is going to have to pay to relocate. These payment amounts will increase by the inflation rate or more. The rent board will have the power to increase the amount of the relocation payments. That was number 4. Number 5, the rent board shall consist of 5 members. 3 of the members must be tenants of National City. So you have a board of 5 members, 3 of which are going to be tenants. That's going to be the rent board. And they're going to have some serious power, which we'll get into in a moment here. Number 6, if an owner elects to go out of business, withdrawing their property from the rental market, they will be required to give tenants at least 120-day notice, 4 months notice, or 1 year notice if the tenant is senior or disabled. relocation payments will also apply. So 4 months to a total of 12 months notice. Number 7, if the unit is ever returned to the rental market, the previous tenants shall have the right to first reoccupy the premises and at the rent effective when they previously occupied the rental unit. There is no time limitation on this provision. And they give an example here. So, say a homeowner who rents out their home for whatever reason, maybe they decide to move to a different city, they rent out their home, they want to move back in, and then later on down the road they decide to rent it out again. A decade later, they're going to be compelled to offer to its previous tenant the right to occupy at the decade's old rent. Wow. Number 8, the Rent Control Board, remember, how many? 3? 3 of those folks are going to be tenants, 3 of the 5. The Rent Control Board may charge and collect a rental housing fee paid by rental property owners to fund their operations. The owners are going to be paying for this whole thing. The measure proposes an initial fee of $120 per unit per year. The Rent Control Board is given the power, remember, 3 of those folks of the 5 are going to be tenants, to increase the annual fee, and most rent control boards in California currently charge between $240 to $360 per unit per year. If you have a 10-unit building, you can pay up to $3,600 a year just to the rental board. When you think about your line item expenses on a profit and loss for an apartment building or a rental property, the number 1 expense is always taxes. Number 2, water. Number 3 is probably going to be this rental board if it goes through, up to $360. Number 9, rental owners may not charge for utilities unless the utilities are individually metered. This prohibits ratio utility billing, otherwise known as RUBS. This is another big one. When you think about an apartment building, most of them do not have individual water meters. They have individual electrical meters and gas meters, but most of them are running off one water meter, and generally the owner pays for the water bill. And many of the smart ones, they bill their tenants for a reimbursement, sometimes $40, sometimes $60 on a monthly basis, depending on how many folks are occupied in that unit. So this is essentially saying that they could no longer do that. Well, we all know that the cost of water keeps going up, 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 and up. And now you have a situation where the rental owner has no way of recuperating those costs. They can't absorb it in the rent because, as we'll see in number 10, there's going to be limits there. So what do? They're just going to get squeezed more and more. It's sad, really. And number 10, the base rent may be allowed to increase by the inflation rate, but in no event shall rents increase by, here we go, 5%, regardless of the amount of the actual increases in the CPI. 5%. Now what you generally find is there are owners that have owned for many, many, many years, many decades, and they just don't raise rents. They like their tenants. They don't keep their rents up at market, and now we're going to be in a situation where these folks are going to have artificially low rents, and they're not going to be able to raise them past that 5%. So there you have it. The 10 worst bullet points of the over 20 that will be on the national city rent measure that will be voted on in November by the voters in National City. My recommendation is this. If you are planning on holding on to your properties and fighting through this, especially if you own properties in National City, I highly recommend that you join the San Diego County Apartment Association. They're the local apartment association, and they're the ones that will continue to fight for your rights, which number 3 here says are trying to be eliminated by the tenants' rights groups. They're going to continue to fight for your rights. You can find more information about them at www.sdcaa.com, San Diego County Apartment Association. And finally, if you feel that maybe it's time that you sell your building, take advantage of this highly inflated real estate market. We're selling properties for record prices right now. then I recommend that you call me right away. I specialize in the sale of apartment buildings and rental properties in San Diego County. I'm here to work for you. I can be reached directly at 619-483-1031. Again, that's 619-483-1031. Or again, you can visit my website at www.yourapartmentbroker.com. Again, my name is Doug Tabor. I look forward to serving you in the future and look forward to giving you another rental owner update very soon. Take care.